Good morning, Faith family. Today is the final day of our Holy Week devotion, and we're in John chapter 19, verses 28 through 42. And it reads, "After this, Jesus, knowing that all things had already been accomplished to fulfill the scripture, said, 'I am thirsty.' A jar full of sour wine was standing there, so they put a sponge full of the sour wine upon a branch of hyssop and brought it up to his mouth. Therefore, when Jesus had received the sour wine, he said, 'It is finished.' And he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. Then the Jews, because it was the day of preparation, so that the bodies would not remain on the cross on the Sabbath, for that Sabbath was a high day, asked Pilate that their legs might be broken and that they might be taken away. So the soldiers came and brake the legs of the first man and of the other one who was crucified with him. But coming to Jesus, when they saw that he was already dead, they did not break his legs. But one of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and immediately blood and water came out. And he who has seen has testified. His testimony is true, and he knows that he is telling the truth, so that you also may believe. For these things came to pass to fulfill the scripture, not a bone of him shall be broken. And again, another scripture says, they shall look upon him whom they pierce. After these things, Joseph of Arimathea, being a disciple of Jesus, but a secret one, for fear of the Jews, asked Pilate that he might take away the body of Jesus. And Pilate granted permission. So he came and took away his body. Nicodemus, who had first come to him by night, also came, bringing a mixture of myrrh and aloes, about 100 pounds weight. So they took the body of Jesus and bound it in linen wrappings, with the spices, as is the burial custom of the Jews. Now in the place where he was crucified there was a garden, and in the garden a new tomb, in which no one had yet been laid. Therefore, because of the Jewish day of preparation, since the tomb was nearby, they laid Jesus there." So as we look at this particular story, in Jesus' first words, after he says, "I'm thirsty," what had been accomplished? What scripture are they referring to? Basically, when he had given him the sour wine, that was a reference to Psalm 69 and 21. And what it is finished signify? What is significant about being pierced in the side? So, it is finished means that the redemptive price that Jesus paid for us had been done. Being pierced in the side means that as the cross was elevated, then the soldier would have angled his spear upwards to pierce his heart to ensure death. This was to verify that he was actually dead. Why should bones not be broken? Well, remember the Passover lamb. The Passover in Exodus says that in Exodus 12 and 46, it is to be eaten in a single house. You are not to bring forth any of the flesh outside of the house, nor are you to break any bone of it. So it's a reference to Jesus being our Passover lamb. It mentions to look on him whom they have pierced. This is a reference to Zechariah 12 and 10. "I will pour out on the house of David and on the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of supplication, so that they will look on me whom they have pierced, and they will mourn for him, as one mourns for an only son, that they will weep bitterly over him, like the bitter weeping over a firstborn." So that's the situation that's happened while Jesus actually died, verified that he was died by soldiers, by Roman soldiers, and we know that he died on the cross, but yet they didn't break his legs. Now after that, Joseph ends up putting Jesus in his tomb. Now, I know a lot of preachers have said and preached a lot of sermons about making sure that when the opportunity comes to represent Jesus, don't be afraid. And we all face that opportunity every day. But basically, Isaiah 53 and 9 says, "His grave was assigned with wicked men, yet he was with a rich man in his death, because he had done no violence, nor was there any deceit in his mouth." So we see the fulfillment of Scripture in that the rich man, which would have been Joseph of Arimathea, Jesus was placed in his borrowed tomb. And so God knows what he's doing. His plans are always being fulfilled. And no matter what we think or do, we become part of his plan whether we want to or not. What was the Sanhedrin? Because Joseph was of the Sanhedrin as well as Nicodemus. And if hopefully your children are there with you, they may ask. During that time of Christ, it is the highest tribunal of Jews who met in Jerusalem and for various things, because Nicodemus was also a member of the Sanhedrin. The question I want to ask is, what fear is stopping you from declaring your commitment to Christ? How much are you willing to invest in him? What evidence is there in your life that you're a faithful follower of Christ? Lastly, in what ways can you show your community that you're fully sold out for Jesus Christ? Even though Nicodemus was afraid, as Joseph of Arimathea, when the time came, they gladly represented him, showing their commitment and their dedication to him through public ridicule, through investing in the mirror, and in doing so publicly, they showed their commitment to him. Will you do the same?